those thousands of pitches that you hear, what percentage of them are truly awful?
The ones that are awful are the ones who don't realize it's awful because they don't have any proof of concept. They don't have any sales like you have on the show. That's why we always ask sales. And they say, well, here's my idea. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it. I need you to, I need you to help me. And I go, well, I had 6 ideas this morning. Why would I help you with yours?
So do me a favor, Daymond. I've never met Hype Williams. All right. I know that's your man's. Maybe one day. But please give him my best because he played a role in my wedding, actually, and he didn't even know it. We did, me and my husband, we did our wedding video. We recreated the intro scene of Belly. That was the wedding video.
You recreated the intro scene of Belly?
Belly. Don't worry, nobody got shot. Like, we didn't do that part.
Oh, okay.
But just how visually it looked.
Gangsta.
Same song, all that, but it was us getting ready for the day, the day of that we got married or whatever. And it was like, if this was Hype Williams inspired, I'll show it to you. Because I think it was kind of dope, if I do say so myself.
The opening in Belly was they were playing
How We Do Want It.
And they were going through the tunnel.
And they were going through the tunnel.
The tunnel, yeah. And
Correct.
their eyes were all like, the lights were...
We did the same thing.
Blowing their eyes out and stuff like that. Wow.
We did the same thing.
That's actually sexy.
Have vision there. Have vision.
That's
so
really good.
He unintended.
I will tell Hype.
Please tell him that he was the inspiration.
He's a recluse. He likes to hide under rocks.
Does he really?
Then he comes out sometimes and shoots a video or a commercial.
Well, speaking of videos, and I had forgotten you were in this video until my husband actually reminded me, because he's a big fan of yours. He's read some of your books. And your Fatty Girl appearance.
No, Fatty Girl was my video.
That was your video.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Everybody else was on
your.
Yeah, I had a
Because
cowbell.
FUBU put out an album, correct?
FUBU put out an album and actually went gold.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we had on there on the album we released the song "Lights, Camera, Action" by Mr. Cheeks, and then Fatty Girl, of course, with Ludacris, Keith Murray, and LL Cool J. It was Daymond John. And then it was Ludacris, Keith Murray, and LL Cool J.
You put your name first. You made sure to put your name first, right?
I paid for the album.
That's right. Your name should go first.
Who pays the most saves the most.
In other words, but I crack up looking at this video and then seeing you now. It's just like, it feels like so night and day, even though being on the music video scene, that was...
No, I still play myself. I still will go to a video.
Why did you... Because I've read... I've heard you say this story a few times. So, for those who maybe don't know this, but you kind of got your start, I guess, if you will, by kind of hanging around musicians and being on the music video scene. So how did that develop?
Well, I grew up in Hollis, Queens, and in Hollis, Queens, there are like a large amount of music artists and rappers come from that little square 4 miles.
You got Run, LL.
Got Run, LL, Salt and Pepper. Run DMC, LL, Salt and Pepper, Tribe Called Quest, Ja Rule, 50 Cent, Lost Boys. Back when we were growing up, Spider D, Young MC, Dr. Dre and Ed Lover, and just so many people came.
Something must have been in the water there.
Yeah, I don't know if it's in the water. You know what I think it is? I think that when the same thing happened in Mount Vernon, and the same thing happened in Compton. I think what happens is when kids see that there's another way to be able to be successful and enjoy life, and you see one artist come out of there, then all the friends become the DJs, the bodyguards, and the producers, and the stylists, and they start to, and me and Hype and Irv, we all grew in the same area. I think it influences kids to go out there and do different.
So,
so I was going around on video sets all the time because I wanted to, just because I wanted to hang out. Obviously,
did you ever think about being a rapper yourself?
No, no, because I couldn't rap.
Oh, okay. At least you knew that.
Yeah, but actually I could break dance, and I remember that I did go on a competition because I was on those tours, and Houdini was going to take me on tour, offered me a role on tour at 16 years old, and I told my mother I was going to go on tour. And she politely said, "Go to your room and finish your homework." And a kid out of Atlanta, this kid named Jermaine Dupri, took my position on the Houdini tour.
Well, I'm sure now you don't think, where would I have gone had I gone on that tour, or how would it worked out? Because I think it probably worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
For you at this point. Not that it didn't obviously work out for Jermaine Dupri. So, at what point did you start to think that you wanted to get into clothing?
It's funny. I love clothing, and I was the kid who at 10 or 11 or 12 couldn't go out, and we would wait for, rap music wasn't being played at all, but it would only come on around 11 or 12 o'clock at night on a show called Mr. Magic Show Friday nights. So we would all stay up just to watch it, and I would clean my sneakers and do stuff like that. And that was around 10 or 11 years old. Excuse me. I wouldn't realize till 20 years old that I can match my love of fashion with my love of music. I really didn't realize that. I just wanted to dress at that time. But at 20 years old, I realized, wait a minute, and everybody says do something you love. But I never realized that I could put hip hop with fashion, put it together.
So when you started to kind of have this idea, at least from what you've said and what I've read, as well as like your mom played a really big role in kind of getting you off the ground. Talk about what she did and how she kind of helped this initial seed turn into a full-fledged, kind of thing. For
well,
you.
mom inspired me in various different things that I've done in life, and I wouldn't realize that until I was 30 years old that actually everything that she did, I replicated later on because, as most kids, my kids don't listen to me. I'm the dumbest man on the planet. You don't realize what they're doing. But when I decided to make a couple of hats because I felt that a certain culture was being ignored, and I made FUBU, she showed me how to sew these hats, because she knew how to make clothes here and there because we were just poor, and she would make her own clothes. And she did that, and she would help mortgage the house once I had all these orders. She helped me through a lot of my life at that time, and still even till today.
So how did you come up with the name FUBU?
I kept hearing rumors, and it's actually a rumor now, but that all these designers didn't want African Americans or hip hop kids or rappers wearing their clothes, and I said, who's ever going to love and value the market that they're servicing and providing? And I came up with Forest Bias. And a lot of people would think it was be about purely a color. And it wasn't, because if it was about only a color, then I'd be the same bigot that I was fighting against. I didn't care if you were, like, I would address MC Search at the time, or Beastie Boys, or Eminem today, right? But I came with Forest Bias as somebody valuing this culture.
So LL Cool J was the first rapper that you had to wear FUBU. Is that correct?
The first rapper in a major way.
In a major way, right?
Yeah. The first rappers to wear it was artists is that a woman named Miss Jones had put it in her video, and then Brand Nubian, Old Dirty Bastard, Method Man.
Those are not small time rappers, by the way. You're like, oh.
But they were small time then.
Right, yeah.
Miss Jones, I don't think ever, she's a dear friend of mine. I don't think she really went on to do many more songs, but,
Yeah. So how did you convince LL to wear FUBU?
It's funny. I here's what I did. I had I had money for 50 shirts. Once I started putting, I had 10 shirts at first. I put them all in videos. I tried. I had money for 50 shirts. I took the 50 shirts and I put them on the biggest guys I knew, because I knew that if I gave them to skinny kids, fashionable kids, they'd wear it once or twice and throw it away. But the big guys had little options, right? They either had to go to Rochester Big and Tall, and they'd have a big white shirt, a big black shirt, or a custom-made piece that costs a lot. I kept putting it on these guys. These guys ended up being the bodyguards. They ended up being the guys in front of the red rope. They, and they would wear it 10 times a month instead of one time. And L and all those artists started to see these guys and then said, yo, what am I, chopped liver? I'd be like, no, well, you ain't going to give me no love. And they were like, no, I'll give you love. Nah, you ain't going to give me no love. And that's how I initially started getting on all the artists.
Now, didn't you, I read that you stood outside of his trailer or someplace and, literally... I
stood outside of his house for 6 hours.
6 hours, huh? You were a determined person.
Well, the down the block was the coldest 40 dogs in the neighborhood. I just kept going back down the block and getting another 40, me and my friends, and sitting outside. And we saw a big black limousine pull up. We knew he had to leave sooner or later. And he came outside, and I just begged him to take a picture for me, and he did. He was like, you know what? You're determined. You're, if you ever get anywhere, and you probably won't, take care of me. And he took a shot for me.
It was, I don't know if you've ever heard this story. Kind of your origin story reminds me a lot of Kevin Planks from Under Armour. And I interviewed him when I was at ESPN years ago. And the first athlete he convinced to wear Under Armour was Eddie George. But he also offered Eddie George some stock, to invest, right? And it was like, nah, but I'll wear the shirt, right? So Eddie, obviously Under Armour becomes whatever. And I forget what the exact figure that Eddie George lost out on, but it was a sickening amount of money because he would have been basically, he'd have had equity in the company. He would have been, one of the first and biggest investors, and he passed to wear the shirt.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I was to say, so did LL actually become an investor in FUBU or no?
Yes,
He did become one. That's what I thought he did.
And L, we all made a lot of money together, and we're very happy about that.
So, I mean, this is a big part of what you do is finding companies, obviously, with their success on Shark Tank, finding things to invest in. As you look at with today's media age and today's business world, what do you see are the kind of typical mistakes a lot of young entrepreneurs make these days?
I don't think it's a mistake that young entrepreneurs don't always make. They want to grow too fast. So just like me and everybody else, instead of having one or two shirts like Kevin Plank, one shirt in one specific area, they want 10 shirts, right? Or they want to get a bigger retail space or whatever the case is. So, and then they end up getting more, investing more inventory. You'd rather be on the side of, well, I have $2 million worth of orders. Let me make $1.5 million worth of product so that I can be short and create demand. Instead, a normal entrepreneur, I got $2 million worth of orders. Let me make $4 million because my stuff is so great that everybody's going to want to buy it again. Mm-hmm. And that adds up. That's one thing that they do. Also, they take in money too soon. They take in instead of making the mistakes small and learning and saying, okay, well, this didn't work out. This did work out. I'm gonna just keep working this thing for 5 years or whatever the case is. They take in $200,000 for 50% of the company, and then let's say the good example is you blow up. Well, then you're gonna need $1 million more or $2 million more to keep running the company. Well, I just gave you $200,000 for 50%. I'm not giving up my equity. Now you got to give up more, right? Instead of just growing the company as much as you could, and instead of taking $200,000 for 50%, you take $200,000 and guarantee somebody $250 on their money, and give up zero because you know that you can turn the money. So those are usually the things that the biggest mistakes.
Was it hard for you to be patient as you were kind of making your way with FUBU and some of your other ventures?
Yes and no. So first of all, it was extremely hard if I realized where I was going to be in my life now, because it took forever. But it wasn't hard because I never thought I'd be here. I was just messing around, making shirts, and being able to go to video sets and feeling like I had a purpose and feeling like I was so happy to see other people wearing my clothes that I would have done it for free for the rest of my life if I could have.
So you had never, when you were starting out, and even in the process, you were never envisioning FUBU as this like worldwide company. You were more or less like, I'm just happy with these.
When I started out, first of all, all my friends, if you ever see the movie Belly, all my friends were the kids that they made the movie Belly about. They were all drug dealers and things of that nature, and I wasn't. And at that time, being a male making clothing, you were considered gay. I'm not gay. I don't have it, but I don't have any issue with anybody who is, right? So all my friends alienated me. Clothing was the only people prior to me that I am aware of is Carl Kanai and Cross Colors who influenced me. But other than that, clothing wasn't a place that you can make money or you were cool. So I did it because I really just loved to do it, and I was hoping that maybe my best scenario would be I would have a little boutique in Hollis, Queens.
You've said before that you you have a specific theory about the idea of a big break, right? That you sort of believe, and I'm just paraphrasing here. You can certainly explain it in better detail. You sort of believe that success is determined by a series of things that happen.
Yeah.
Just elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, well, success is it's a domino effect of various different things happening. But that's when people say, is there such a thing as luck? And no, there's not luck. There's, preparation, and desire meets opportunity. I've seen a lot of people in whether my company or other companies or in the world say I can't get a break, but the break is sitting in front of them every single minute, but they're not taking action because they haven't negotiated with themselves on what really needs to happen for them to get somewhere, right? And so my opportunities came in various different forms, right? The fact that I could take 10 shirts for 2 years and keep putting them on wrappers and taking them back because I had access to video sets, right? Because I was young enough, I didn't have a family, and I was able to work 20 hours a day and put that work in because that was it. I didn't have anything. That was my asset. It wasn't a liability. It was an asset. The fact that I go to the mag show, got $300,000 in orders. Other people will say, well, I can't make the orders. No, I got the orders first. Let me figure this out after that. I mean, so it's always these breaks, that happen. And if you're looking at life as the glass is half full, you're going to recognize the breaks.
I once did an interview with Magic Johnson, and people that are very successful in business, of course, we always hear about your successes. I'm more sometimes curious about the failures, and just because I think you can learn something from those things. And Magic told me this story about how when he was a young kid, when he was coming into the NBA draft, there were 2 shoe companies that came to his living room, one of which was Converse, which at the time, people that remember, this is the late 70s, and Converse was that thing, right?
Yeah.
And it was another company called Nike that nobody had ever heard of, that was small and fledgling, and, they were still trying to make their way, Phil Knight, obviously. And so Nike told him, hey, we can't offer you probably as much as some others can, but we can give you stock. We can give you a lot of stock. And Magic said, he was like, I don't know shit about stock. I'm from the hood. So he's like, I wanted my money right then.
Yeah.
So, of course, he went with Converse because they paid more money.
Of course.
And he was like, every time he passes a Nike store, he just sick to his stomach because of the amount of stock that they were offering. And I put it like this, he'd be over that billion or at that billion now had he taken him up on it. I say all that to say, what are some of the things that maybe you missed out on that you look at now? Like, do you have one of those in your, business portfolio where you're just like, why didn't I invest in this or do this?
I happen to have plenty of those, but the only difference in having plenty of those is when I had the opportunity for those, I wasn't Magic Johnson in a position where companies were giving me that offer. So I didn't invest in Uber. I didn't invest in various things. However, I get pitched literally over 2,000 companies a year. Right, and all the ones I didn't invest in, trust me, there's a lot that if I would have went to zero. So I never had that option. You're talking about Magic being somebody who's in the draft and getting an opportunity like that, and I can see where his issue lies in that one, but I never had that issue.
So even because you get pitched so much, is it a little mentally taxing? Because after you start hearing the same thing over and over, is it hard to then say, okay, I really need to lock in because this sounds like a good idea? Like, what's that process like for you?
I say no to everything.
You say no to everything?
I do. I've learned from Warren Buffett only recently, probably the last 3 years, that really successful people say no to almost everything. Because I need to listen. If I want to really lock in, I can bring back FUBU to some extent. I own the company, right? So I say no to almost everything at this moment. Yeah, because when I'm on Shark Tank, that's different.
Right.
I
it's part of the show, right?
I have to absorb 12 to 15 companies. If I wasn't on Shark Tank, I'd probably look at probably about 3 or 4 a year new companies. But I say no to cold pitches because these business has to be built. I mean, it's a lot of work. So that doesn't mean that I don't invest in companies. But when I send my money over to the New York Stock Exchange and put it in a Tesla, it grows, and I don't have to help with anything. They don't call me for any advice.
So at this point, you're looking for, kind of that setup where like it doesn't require you having to, come to a meeting or do something.
Time is the only thing you can't get back. And a lot of times, it's funny, you want to invest money in the company, but then they need 10 hours from you a week. I mean, what is more valuable in my time, the 10 hours or the money?
Of those pitches, those thousands of pitches that you hear, what percentage of them are truly awful?
The ones that are awful are the ones who don't realize it's awful because they don't have any proof of concept. They don't have any sales like you have on the show. That's why we always ask sales. And they say, well, hey, here's my idea. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it. I need you to, I need you to help me. And I go, well, I had 6 ideas this morning. Why would I help you with yours?
That'll shut them down.
No, it doesn't. They're like, no, but you don't understand.
Like, this idea is different.
My worm farm will go global. I'd be like, okay, I get it. I get it.
And you never know. It could be some money in worm farms. You have your 5th book that's coming out in March, Powershift.
Yeah.
Your last 2 were bestsellers.
Yes.
Right? So
yes,
a little pressure on you.
I'm the only shark to have best-selling books. The only one.
What does that mean to you?
Well, besides me being the shark with the top investment in Shark Tank history, Bombas, besides me being the youngest shark and the coolest shark, the fact that I have 2 New York Times best-selling books just means, I don't like to talk about the other sharks in a negative way, but they're losers. I mean, if you really think about that, they have almost nothing on me.
Right.
Nothing.
So what is Powershift? What's sort of the central idea in this book?
Powershift is the ability to, listen, everybody, like I said, I get pitched 2,000 things a year, but on Shark Tank, I've seen over 1,000 pitches, and in real life, I've seen almost over 10,000 pitches. And people believe that negotiation is the key to what you're going to get in life, right? The only difference between, you, me, or other people is what we have negotiated on our way up the ladder or what we fail to negotiate. But negotiation doesn't mean it needs to be the transactional action that when you're sitting across the table. Negotiation starts way before then. It starts when you've built an influence. Then there's the negotiation, and where the value in it all comes from is nurturing the relationship afterwards. And you may say, well, how did I build influence? I just ran into Daymond John in the elevator. I had 90-second pitch. So how do I build influence there? You build influence by what you had put on social media for the last 5 years, because in the event that I like you, in the 90 seconds that I saw you in the elevator, I'm going to pull up your name and or your Instagram when I leave. And I'm going to see on that Instagram, I'm going to see things that either make me go, I cannot wait to be in this person's life, or this person's add value to my life, or this person takes pictures with this person's husband or wife is a racist, and this person must think like that. This person's always putting out social media between 9 to 5. However, they don't work in the social media department at their company. And this person said they're an activist and all this great stuff, and they're not. Right? So due diligence starts there, right? And a lot of people don't understand how to build this influence prior and then negotiate and then get the benefit off of what they're doing. And I think that's why it's important for me to put the book out.
It seems, I've always thought it's a difference between building that influence you're talking about, mentorship and sponsorship. A lot of people blur mentorship and sponsorship, and dealing with somebody who's extremely busy like yourself, that I've told a lot of young people this, is like, it's okay if you just get to the point. If you just want me to put in a word for you for an internship or to do this, get to the point. Like, you don't need to create this false, idea of what this is, because I'd much rather get to the point because I got shit to do, right? Right. And even in mentorship, they have a habit, I think, of looking for people. It's okay to want to emulate somebody's career. Like, if somebody wants to be Daymond John, that's fine. Find your origin story. They can see how you did things. But a lot of times the best mentors are people that are not necessarily at the highest level of what they want to do.
100%.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you, because you have access to them. Sometimes with other people you don't have access. But the most important thing I think about with mentors is, and I always say this to kids, is what's in it for the mentor. There's, when you walk up to a mentor and say, well, I need help because of this, and I need to do this, I need that. Fine, I got my own damn problems, right? What's in it for the mentor? Right? So maybe, like I use this example often, but it's real. Listen, I love saving, animals. And if you came over to me and one kid came over and said, I need help, this and that, if you give me an hour worth of work a week, I would really love it. I'd be like, okay, fine. Another kid came over to me and said, I'm going to donate 2 to 3 to 4 hours at a local shelter, and I'm going to help these animals. And in return, can you give me just an hour a week or a half an hour phone call? But I'm going to do this because I know this is a passion of yours. I don't want any money. I don't necessarily need any money. So what's in it for the mentor?
I'm sure that because you were starting off a company that was non-traditional, and especially considering the space that you were in, what was it like for you as FUBU got more popular and more successful, going into spaces that were non-hip hop spaces? That basically, when you're talking to them white people, like, what were those
We're not
experiences?
talking to the white people?
Yeah, what were those experiences like, especially you as a young entrepreneur coming from a non-traditional background?
Was somewhat fascinated. Most thought that we were a joke and we were, here today and gone tomorrow. I remember, at that time I was wearing a lot of jewelry because I was happy that I had money. And some of my distributors are white. And I remember a guy came in and pitched us for an advertising campaign and pitched a $5 million campaign. And I came in the room and he looks at me and he goes, "Man, oh, look at all that jewelry. They must pay you a lot around here." And my white distributors stood up and said, "The meeting's over." And he said, "Why?" He said, "You just told the boss that I guess you think because we're white he works for you. So you just told the boss that he's basically an employee. Get out of here." So, I had that a lot of times. But you know what? Again, I'm the ultimate optimistic person. The ones that I walked in the room with that I found value in was the ones that found value in me. They basically said, "You're servicing a market that we don't know. And if we knew any better, you wouldn't be here. We want to hear what you have to say, what you're delivering, and just tell us how we can make ourselves better." So I've had both sides of it. I've had clothing stores who said, "There's 4 black guys on the hang tag, and this is obviously a gang, and we need the hang tags to be cut off." And I'm not joking. And they're like, "We don't want these type of people in our store because we don't want shootouts in our store." I mean, I've never been in a store when somebody like, "Yo, you got a 34? Yo, break yourself."
Right.
You know what I mean? I've never heard,
I was like, really?
I got a 32, like, that's a double X. Give me that green. I've never heard of that.
Right.
So I've dealt with a lot of ignorance, but I've also dealt with a lot of people who valued the community we were serving, valued my thought process, and said, "Yeah, listen, the only color we care about here in the business is called green, and we're gonna make it together."
I've always been fascinated by if companies say like Gucci or these other ones that have become so popular in urban spaces, that if they even understand what that means, or for that matter, that the cultural influence they could have. And in thinking about that, I'm thinking about how, was it not too long ago that Gucci made the tragic mistake with the blackface?
Right.
I'm wondering, how does that still happen in these,
Well, you got to understand. A global brand hits a lot of people, and even FUBU, it's worn in various different countries, various different ways, and you can't touch everybody and know every single culture all the time. And I'm not trying to defend anybody, but Gucci, who probably makes 3,000 styles a year, and then they're probably in 80 different countries. You don't necessarily know who came up with that imagery, and that imagery could have been off of African art. It could have been off of various different things, and the way it was put through the system, I think that it went through various different channels, and people just didn't get it. I mean, it's just what it is. It's like when you go to Japan. I went to Japan one time and I saw the kids wearing blackface. Now, you would perceive that as something negative, but it was the Japanese kids who were wearing New York Knicks jerseys, breakdancing, wearing blackface because they wanted to emulate blacks, because they valued blacks, and that was their way of emulating them. So I can see the chain of command being broken down from some little designer in Europe or someplace else who may not have understood the challenges with it.
Were you ever, or did you ever feel any pressure? Like you talked about that particular experience that you had, with the person who thought you were the employee and not the boss. Did you ever feel any pressure to change, to sort of fit into more of corporate culture, even though this is your business, obviously? But did you ever feel that, like, maybe I have to dial back, maybe I shouldn't wear so much jewelry or anything like that? Did you ever go through that?
No, I never went through that from a perspective of, I've always been proud of who I am. I never tried to fit in. The only time that I shouldn't wear, that I felt I shouldn't wear more jewelry, is when I felt stupid about it. Is when I remember I was in Colorado and I was in a room, and I think in the room was people like Buffett and Gates and all these type of people, and I'm excited about my, $200,000 medallion I got on, and these guys were looking like they just rolled out of bed.
Yeah, Bill Gates looks like a science teacher.
Yeah, these guys are really. And then I remember hearing, the funny thing is when you hear wealth, you hear hood people talking, and hood, I'm not talking about black, any color. They talk about how much they spent on their houses or on parties and stuff like that. And when you're in a room with billionaires, they talk about how much they gave away this year. So I started to understand that, listen, you're never going to have, a bigger wallet than anybody. And I'm walking around, showing my $200,000 chain, and, this guy owns a island, and I just realized that, listen, if Mark Cuban woke up with my money, he'd cut his wrist and jump out the window. If Jeff Bezos woke up with Mark Cuban's money, he would cut his wrist and jump out of the window. Right? So I realized at some point in time that, you can't, that's just fronting, you know what I mean? And wearing a big chain, it's uncomfortable. I'm a little guy.
It's a little heavier.
It hurts the back of my neck and all kind of stuff. Then,
Oh my God. That's such an old man statement. Huh? Like, it hurts my neck.
It hurts my neck.
Well, you often hear that, like, a lot of people who really have money are much more understated than we think. But I think, I'm sure you went through that phase of not just with jewelry where you made some probably big dollar purchases just because it might have made you feel good.
I made it rain for about 5 years.
Did you really?
On everything.
That's impressive.
I made it rain on everything I could buy.
What's the most money you've ever spent in a strip club?
I wasn't talking strip club. What's wrong with you?
Oh, you said made it rain. I thought you meant a strip club.
Pig. I'm talking about in general.
Oh, my bad. Sorry. When you said make it rain, I thought that's universally understood.
No,
That's
I'm talking about, buying houses, cars. Okay, I've been to a strip club once or twice.
Once or twice?
Last week. But I'm just saying, I'm joking.
What was that?
But I would buy out, I remember, I put in one of my books a chapter called Overboiling. I go down to Miami to buy an apartment, and I buy an apartment, I don't know, $3-4 million, and I realize the apartment doesn't have, the marina is not close enough to it for a boat, and I want to buy a big boat. So I go 10 blocks down and I buy another house for $4 or $5 million because it had a nice dock. My friends would end up enjoying all those homes way more than I would because I'm traveling so much.
Right.
And then I would buy like 7 or 8 homes at that time and all these cars. And I realized that it was a waste of money, waste of time. Now, thank God, I bought all these homes and stuff in 99 and 2000, and I sold them when I got a divorce right around 2006, 2007.
So pre-recession.
Pre-recession, right? So if I bought it for 3, I sold it for 7. And I wish I could tell you that I was a genius real estate investor. No, I would have lost my shirt on them if I would only sold them 2 years later. But it was the best day of my life when I sold all those houses.
Wow. What's the most you had at once?
Houses?
Yeah.
I had 8.
You had 8. Okay. And I assume you've downsized since.
Yeah, I have 3.
Look at that. 8 to 3. Growth.
8 houses. Now I have 2 apartments and 1 house.
Oh, okay.
And all of them are super small.
That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
All right. We were talking before the break about some of the purchases you made when you were younger that, you wouldn't obviously necessarily make now. What do you teach your children about money? How do you teach them about finances?
Challenging. I told my children and my wife that I want us to read another financial book every year because even me, I'm still getting educated on finance, and you always find something new and different way to do it. I actually am implementing it with my staff too. That we're all going to read a new financial book every year. But my ex-wife really raised my daughters really well. But it's challenging, because I was at the point one time when I remember saying to my daughter, "Listen," and I got a 27-year-old, I got a 21-year-old, I got a 3-year-old, right, all girls, and I remember saying, you work enough, and they're hard workers. And I was like, if you put in whatever money you put in, I'll match it. I initially was going to match anything that they would give me towards the end of the year. So they built up a nice amount of money doing that. And I said, you want a car? You put in all the money, I'll match it. And I remember a friend of mine said something really amazing to me. He said, I know you want to teach her financial intelligence about matching the money. He said, but do you want your daughter riding around in a piece of shit car? Or do you want her riding around in the safest car ever because in case she gets in an accident, you want your daughter's life to be saved instead of she had to penny pinch. So it's a balance, right? But I try to teach them financial intelligence, and we read books together.
Now, is it hard to kind of because you have such a persona, you're on a very successful show, you're a successful author, successful businessman. Is it hard to sort of teach them more conservative financial values, given that you clearly, I mean, you make a lot of money. You know what I'm saying?
It is and it isn't because they see the downsizing. They saw the downsizing in the homes. They see that I live a very humble life. And I put in the work doing it because they're only going to follow what I do, not what I say. Have they seen a lot of opulence? Yes. Are they way better off than most people? Absolutely. But I believe I believe that if you give somebody everything, you make them the poorest person in the world. My daughters know that I'm leaving them absolutely zero when I die.
Really? Why is that?
Well, I earned it. That's not their money.
So are you gonna give it all away?
I don't know yet, but I'm not giving them shit.
Really?
I'm not giving them anything.
How did they receive this information?
They didn't have a problem with it, because at first, when they were 15 or something, they hear it, they go, I don't want nothing from you. Well, I hope that you feel like that because you ain't getting shit from me. And the reason why is for various different reasons. Because first of all, I don't want a man in their life going, I want to marry this woman because when dad croaks, we'll be all right. I also want them to understand that. And there's a lot of people that I study, Buffett and Gates, they have dedicated to leaving their kids zero. Wow. I believe that after I give my kid up to a college education, that's it. They're on their own. I've given you all the things that you need.
Well, I guess technically if they got married now or you were still alive, a dude could still come into their life and say,
Say what?
Well, they'd have to get a prenup, presumably, obviously. But
he couldn't do anything. I mean, because after the first couple of weeks in dating, he'd be like, "Yo, well, where's the Maserati Dad got?" They'd be like, "Well, Dad ain't fucking with me like that." And he'd be like, "Oh man, shit, let me move on." You gonna find out quick.
Well, this is one of your other things. You talked about the power of being broke before,
yeah.
And I imagine as a parent, it's kind of hard because you know what being broke taught you. Being broke taught me a lot as well, but your kids, they're not going to experience that. So
true, and that's the hardest thing too. I can't give my kids adversity, and having girls is way different than having boys. Am I going to let my daughter be homeless? No, that's not going to happen. But she's definitely not going to be, Birkened out and staying in Greece all summer long. I have no idea. I get on Instagram, how are those people in Greece all year long?
I want to be in Greece all year long.
I want to be in Greece all year long, right. Too. I look on there, I be like, God damn.
Well, it leads to something I wanted to talk to you about. So based off data from the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finance, the typical black family has only 10 cents for every dollar held by a typical white family. There's been a lot of conversation.
I'm sorry, 10 cents?
10 cents for every dollar held by the typical white family.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That is
staggering.
A huge gap. Oh
so from, pre-civil rights, even during the civil rights, movement, the racial wealth gap looks worse now than it did 50, 60 years ago. And the amount of generational wealth being passed down from, obviously one family to another, one generation to another looks just really astoundingly awful. So I'm just wondering, as somebody who's in, the business that you're in, and you just talking about you plan to leave your daughters nothing, is that I don't know if it's a question of like, what's happening there, what aren't we doing, or is this just still kind of the byproduct of institutional racism that has always gone on in this country? Like, why does that look that way for most black households?
Well, I don't want to insult any professors who have a PhD on this, and it's not my position to do this without the proper data. Yes, you're correct when it comes to institutional racism to some extent, because a traditional family was able to, have a good job or put in work, go buy a home. Their home was their equity, so they got a loan for the home. And banks have been known to, from years, to not lend, people of color money as easily, or if they lent them people of color money, it was at a much higher interest rate. That then reduces the potential amount of equity you can have in your home, and then hopefully you would retire. And then also, even when you were making the money, you're making 30-40% less than a white counterpart. So you're starting off making 30-40% less than a counterpart. You're paying more interest on it, and you're not getting a loan. So a lot of times you're cashed out. And I think that is right there the institutional racism that has existed in our country.
It was.
And you don't build equity after that.
No, and it was another interesting thing that I read, and was talking about the GI Bill, right? Which was a way a lot of white Americans were able to buy homes.
Yep.
And the GI, because of the institutional racism, Black soldiers were not allowed the same opportunities.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so it's this entire generation of our people who were not able to purchase homes. So as you said, if the home is supposed to be the building point of this equity and generational wealth, a lot of us didn't get that.
No, and I think that's where it starts. I mean, you know, and also you don't have financial intelligence now, because prior to our generation, or you know, the generation before us, we didn't have uncles and aunts who understood financial intelligence from the 30s and or whatever, and set up trust funds and things of that nature to give us that information. And people that of other colors who they have an uncle, an aunt, a grandfather, a grandmother who set up boards and trust funds and stuff like that. So if you add all those components together, it creates exactly what we're talking about here, which is sad. And I was not aware of the 10 cents per dollar, and that's shocking to me. That's shocking. And I always talk about financial intelligence, because remember, school is not going to teach you about financial intelligence. School will never teach you that. The reason why the education system can't teach you financial intelligence is because they want you to be able to go out and take a $300,000 or $400,000 loan at 17 or 18 years old to continue an education that you don't necessarily know you want. So why would they ever give you financial intelligence to help you not take loans? So white, black, yellow, or green, we're not going to get financial intelligence in school. So unless you have that from somebody that grew up in your family or your predecessors to give you that information, where are you going to get it from?
Has your idea of success, like, how has it changed, like, over the years? Like, what does success look like to you now?
Success to me now looks like the number one shark on the show with the number one product, so all the other sharks are beneath me.
You stay talking shit about them. I love it. That's hilarious.
You know, success when I was young was making $1 million or $2 million when I had nothing, and I realized that making that money, unless you have an end goal for it, you end up not having anything. So it's like if somebody listening right now says, "I want $1 million," all right, what are you gonna do when you get it?
That part, right?
You're gonna buy one Bugatti. You're gonna buy,
right?
10 Mercedes.
Can that get you one? I mean, like, I don't even know if it can get you one.
Yeah, maybe not. Right?
I use one probably.
You're going to live off of $30,000 a year and go live on an island and live for 10 years at $300,000 and put $700,000 away in some Airbnbs where you're gonna make money, and then you're gonna just sit there shucking coconuts and saving turtles. What are you gonna do? Right? It's almost like, what do you do when you get to the finish line? What are you going to do? And most people don't know, and I didn't know either when I was a kid, what I was going to do if I made money. And my first $1 million went like that.
So this is going to sound probably to the people listening like the most new money, just an off perspective to have. But $1 million, you realize when you get it, it's really actually not that much money.
Zero.
It's not. And I was like, I know people are like, what the fuck are you? No, I'm telling you, it's not that much.
Here's $1 million for you. Pay taxes on it. Now you got $600,000.
Yup.
Right? You pay off your house if you have one, and not a big house. $200,000 house. That's not crazy, right?
Nope.
You got $400,000 left. Your credit cards, if you really look at all of them, they're going to add up to $50,000. Right, so now you got what? You got $450 left. No, 200. No, you got $350 left. Right. You didn't take care of mom yet. You didn't buy that car. You didn't do any of that stuff yet. Oh, side pieces. You got to take care of the side pieces.
You got to have a budget for that.
Yeah. If you're a piece of poopy, you take your side pieces.
Okay. So you got a side piece budget, and yes.
You know, or maybe your girl, and you know what? That butt's been drooping for a long time. You need to buy a brand new ass, right? I mean, a brand new ass can cost you $20,000.
Or you might have to upgrade the significant other, period. You know what I'm saying? It could be, they gonna want to see something.
Of course, you're going to make some side investments with some friends who ain't shit. Pookie went to open the modeling agency.
Right.
And you always thought that Pookie had an eye for models. You're done.
Yeah. It's like not a lot. You just realize, like, wow. Look, when I was growing up, I thought my picture of success was making $50,000 a year. Now, yeah, $50,000.
That would have been, when I was growing up, same thing.
Yeah.
$50,000 was like...
You made it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Because when I graduated from college, the average salary of a professional journalist was $19,000 a year. And yes, I still chose to do this anyway. But
Because you loved it.
Because I loved it. And I try to tell younger people that if you love it, you'll make money at it. Because you'll be passionate about it. You'll be driven. You'll want to, you'll want to grind in a different way. And thankfully, I've never made $19,000. I made 22, and I thought I was rich.
There you go.
But you're right. Like, once you get to that point, and so that's why I asked you what success looks like to you now.
But I want to make sure that we don't depress people and say the $1 million is nothing, right? Because
I'm not saying don't take $1 million if you get it. I'm not saying that.
If you get $1 million the right way, right? If you got $1 million, you stayed humble. Like I've seen a lot of NBA and a lot of athletes who. And the stat is that 65% of them after they leave the league are bankrupt 3 years outside. But I've seen also guys who've been bench players or whatever become multimillionaires because they still lived with their mother and they put money to work. You go and buy one of my favorite stocks I love to buy is Shopify, SHOP. I mean, everybody, if you don't know what that is, when you go and open up a store online, it's called Shopify, right?
I have a store on Shopify.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
And the reason why I do that is because if retail is going away and every single person becoming an influencer or whatever the case is, and they're all buying digitally on their phones, you buy Shopify. I bought Shopify at $28. It's $440 now, the stock.
I wish you would have had my number.
That was 3 years ago. And I'm telling you right now.
In 3 years it's done that?
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, that stock's going to go to $1,500. Right? Think about if you had $1 million.
There it is.
And go into something that you love, right? That you know. I love investing in companies that I know that if it went away, it would disrupt the world. Uber is at its lowest right now. It's not going away. And if Uber went away, it would disrupt the world. It's at its lowest price right now. Go buy Uber. If Instagram went away, it's gonna hurt. If Amazon went away, it's gonna hurt. But if you had $1 million after you pay your $400,000 on taxes and then you put $600,000 in that, when it grows, if you don't take it out before a year, then it's called capital gains. If you take it out right away, let's say you made $1 today, and if you take it out before a year is over, you're under a regular tax bracket, 40, 50%. But if you wait for 1 year after, you're under what we call capital gains. It's only 20%. So when you learn how finance work and tools work like that, you can make a lot of money. Tony Robbins talks about a guy who was born in 1930. The number one job, the most paying job he ever had, because he was damn near a slave for a while. The highest paying job he had was a UPS worker in 1980, something like that. Black. When he died, he left $80 million. Because he invested in Coca-Cola and all these little things when he had his $2, his $7, his $9. So if you're listening right now, open up a TD Ameritrade account, put in $4, put in $7, put in $9, and watch how it grows, or it goes away. But if it goes away, it's also losses that you can write off on what you've made.
So does a certain amount of monetary success, is that something you want to be a billionaire? Are those things you have now?
I don't have any monetary success ideas. I do not, no. I don't want to be a billionaire. I mean, what would I do with $1 billion? I
don't know. Ask Warren Buffett. That's your boy. He's trying to give it all away.
I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Really?
I really wouldn't know what to do.
I would like to find out, just to make sure I didn't know what to do with it.
I really would have no idea what to do with $1 billion. I really wouldn't.
So for you, what kind of gives you, when it comes to business and everything that you're doing, like, where's your enjoyment coming from? Where's your passion coming from?
My enjoyment is coming from new businesses I invest in, like Bombas. What I think I've learned most from Bombas stocks is when I went into the show, I went into the show to not get clothing companies because I had 10 clothing companies and 8 of them were dead. The last thing I wanted was a clothing company. But when I Bomber socks, every pair of socks that you buy, we give away a pair to the homeless. And what I learned from there is that social causes are really great for when you have companies because Bombas is going to do some serious numbers. But more importantly, they gave away almost 25 million pairs of socks to those in need. And I also what else did I realize? The consumer today doesn't care about you giving at the end of the year. The consumer says, and they say this around the dinner table, the water cooler Monday morning. Hey, how much you gave in charitable goods this year? I don't know, because every time I bought something, I helped somebody. When I bought this, I helped clean up the ocean. When I bought this, I helped stop human trafficking. And what did I learn from that? I apply it to my other businesses. So, it's like learning. Like, I love to learn in business. Trust me, I know I need money. I'm not up here sounding like no goddamn hippie. I need money, right? So I love to make money. But I love to make money because of the freedom it provides me. The freedom it provides me to write books, right? To travel the world, to be able to provide and make sure that if something happens to my family, more than likely I'm okay to make sure that I can, give them the best medical and stuff like that,
You had maybe one of the hottest political takes I think I've heard. You said that you thought that Kim Kardashian was going to be president someday.
I'm not sure how many Kardashians will be president.
Oh, it's not just one.
Kim for sure.
Kim for sure. Okay.
Kim's going to be president.
So
if she decides.
Assuming, so why do you think she will be president?
Well, I think that right now she picks up her cell phone, she could hit 200 million people. I think that whether it's Ronald Reagan or Donald Trump, when people see somebody, they get very comfortable with somebody in their living room every day, they are more apt to want to root for them. I think that Kim started off with the whole thing with Donald and getting that woman, released from prison. Mm-hmm. And then she's going back to law school. Mm-hmm. She's going to law school. I think that around the world, or the country, people can relate to her because she has every component. Interracial marriage. LGBT is in her family. Female, she doesn't drink, she does, a lot of these other things. She's already played in the political field in some way or another. I think there's no question in my mind that in 8 years she'll probably be able to reach 600 million people with her cell phone, and I think that she could be president. And people will laugh at me, but when I first started working with the Kardashians and I walked them all around my neighborhood in Manhattan and I was getting all their clothes for them, sponsorship. It was $75,000 a year for all the girls to wear a whole brand the whole year, every show. Everybody laughed at me. I was like, okay, that's why year 1 and 2, you'll see them all wearing Coogee, my brand Coogee, because I said, Kim, Chloe, and Courtney, nobody believes in you. I'll just pay you. They're like, all right, no problem. So, and that's what's in my book, Powershift, because even Chris is in my book. Chris Jenner is in my book. There's a certain thing that you see, and I have always seen in various different people, that they know how to shift power, and they shift from every industry they go into. It's hard enough to be in each lane. How do you get to the top of every category? Same thing with Magic Johnson. Same thing with Pitbull. Same thing with the Kardashians. And I'm telling you now, Kim will be president if she decides to go.
I personally think the person who'd be, like, if we had to pick somebody from the entertainment to be that would eventually be in the Oval Office, I'd say The Rock. I think The Rock is going to be
so too.
I think The Rock is going to be president.
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you.
Likability factor. And the fact
and
that
me and him, we're twinsies. I mean, we look the same. That's what I believe in that. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So your twin is gonna make it.
I'm trying to do the odd thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I have not had anything to drink today, so I'm sure if I did, then maybe I could see the resemblance. but no, The Rock, he has the likability, the ethnic background. I don't know a single person that dislikes The Rock. I don't know one.
You're right.
I don't know anybody who dislikes that.
I totally totally agree with you, and I'm going to use that
It's
in
all yours.
some of my other interviews. I'm going to give you
Yeah,
credit.
you can
I'm
say-
going to give you credit the first two.
Okay, and then after that, it's
I'm
yours.
owning this whole shit. You're
I
gonna
totally
be like,
agree. Yeah, just forget about me.
That's
after
all
that.
me. That's all me.
That's interesting though that you saw that in the Kardashians, that you saw them becoming this cultural, phenomenon that they become. Other than Kim, that you said more than one Kardashian. You see Khloe.
I'm not sure because the generational gap between her and Kylie and Kendall are you never know where it's going to be. But again, not overburdening the fact that I say power shift, but when they weren't anybody from what today's standards are, who they are, I saw that they built the influence at a very, very young age, and so did Chris. And that's why when I walked them through the doors and the people didn't understand, I didn't understand. I was like, "Are you crazy?" But absolutely, and I just think that they're a force to be reckoned with, and they're not going to stop, and they're true to their brand.
So how, when the recession hit, how did you survive?
Well, we feel it earlier than everybody else in the clothing industry because when you can't pay your mortgage, the last thing you're doing is buying clothes. You wear that same shirt 400 times. So we started to feel it in 06, 07. And at that time, FUBU was already taking its downturn. Domestically, we were growing it internationally. So we were kind of prepared for it. But, listen, when you have to go from 300 people to 150 people as a staff, it hurts. And we prepared for it by doing those things. We, out of the 10 brands we own, we slowed down on 7 of them, and we kept Coogee, Tonic, and FUBU going. Shrunk down and got a smaller imprint, smaller office. You know what I mean? I had already just went through a divorce, so the houses were all gone, and I had actually made a lot of money off of those things. And then some people called me up and told me about some crappy show called Shark Tank, and I was like, whatever. And they were like, "You're gonna come on the show and spend your own money?" And I was like, "You motherfuckers in Hollywood are pimps. You guys are crazy. Why would I spend my own money? I'm supposed to be a TV star now. You're supposed to pay me." They're like, "No, you're gonna spend your own money." I was like,
What to come to the show, like to put yourself?
No.
up?
They pay for the stupid ass
The
airplane
travel is
ticket.
okay, right,
You know what I mean? But I spent
But just
$750,000 in investments that year, and the first year it was crap. I lost it.
Yeah.
But why did I do the show? Number one, I said I was only getting pitched clothing companies prior to that because of course they hold all of us in a pigeonhole us in a box, and I said to maximize my time when I go to Macy's, I want to take up more real estate. So I want to be able to say, here's clothing, here's plates, here's cosmetics, here's electronics. I already know the buyer, so we can build up our relationship. All right, I'll go on the show. And that crappy show will turn out to be something that will change my life and change many other people's lives.
So was there a point early on where you felt that it was a hit? Because even though eventually you came into it thinking like this is gonna be nothing, but at what point did you realize the show was a hit?
Year 5.
It took that long for you to realize that?
Well, for the first 3 years, they were considering canceling the show for the first 3 years in a row. So it couldn't be a hit if every year they were like, I don't know, we're gonna renew it. But the show history has shown in every territory it's been in, year 3 or year 4 it hits, because what happened was when we were on the show, we go to promote it, and they were like, first of all, I don't know who a Daymond John is, so I don't want him on the show, right? We were nobodies. And Mark Burnett said, well, I'm not going to put celebrities on the show because the real American viewers watching the show will never believe that these people are rolling up their sleeves and helping the entrepreneurs if they're an athlete or a singer. Nothing wrong with that, but they got their own career. Like, how can Taylor Swift help somebody with a sponge company if she's on tour? So he stuck to his guns, and we stayed on the show. Then all of a sudden, Mark Cuban comes on the show. Mark Cuban then can walk on Jay Leno and talk about the show. Then people started to say, well, are you in the tank with sharks? Are you cleaning the tank? Who gets the money? Who wins? We couldn't describe the show. But after about 3 years, people started, all these small entrepreneurs who started having good companies would go out to local markets and be like, no, I got the money. Daymond John Barber's working with me, whatever the case is, and here's who my, and it was almost like viral, but it took years.
Why do you think the show resonates though with so many people?
The show resonates with people because prior to the show, when would you ever know what millionaires and billionaires would ask you when you're pitching yourself or a company? Number one, right? We've given America a vernacular that's only been in boardrooms before. Now a little kid, 9 years old, can tell you what royalties are, what margins are, what's your distribution, what are your sales, you're dead to me. You know, like we've given the show, the American public a vernacular that they can speak about. Also, you know what it shows? You can sit on your couch talking about all that crap about you can't do it because all you need is this, all you need is that. But you will see somebody walk up on that damn show, on that carpet, and you'll complain about your color, your race, your religion. You'll see somebody up there, walk up there that looks just like you, who has zero. And you will see them get off their ass, and they will end up having a successful company. And you'll say, I can do it too.
Yeah, it's a very aspirational show.
And that's why it works.
Daymond, thank you so much for coming, dropping by, spending a little time with me, sharing your story. And for all those listening, make sure that you buy his new book. You should have bought his old book. So you can just go through the whole catalog, right? But his new book, Powershift, coming out in March. But yeah, thank you for being just so inspirational with everything that you do.
I really and sincerely appreciate it. A lot of tough questions, a lot of things that I haven't shared with other people, and
that makes me feel
relaxed that I can share this with everybody.
And I don't feel bad now that I said that $1 million ain't shit. Thank you for that was a safe place for me to say that. So Daymond's getting out of here. Y'all know what's coming up next. Final segment. Fuck it, I'm bothered.